Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. My name is Anisra binti Ros Azizi. Today, Eliya and I are going to present two poems from the Victorian era. Victorian era was the period of Queen Victoria's reign from 20 June 1837 until her death on 22 January 1901. For the first poem, we chose How Do I Love Thee by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And I am going to recite How Do I Love Thee by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight, for the ends of being an ideal grace. I love thee to the level of everyday's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passions we put to use in my old grief and with my childhood faith. I love thee with the love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all of my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. Who is this Elizabeth Barrett Browning? She was born on March 6, 1806 at Coxhoe Hall, Durham, England. She was an English poet of the Victorian era. The eldest of 12 children, Elizabeth Barrett wrote poetry from the age of 11. She died in Florence on June 29, 1861. The subject matter of the poem is about an adoration towards someone. It revolves around innocent love and faith. The purpose of the poem: the poet is proclaiming her unending passion for her beloved and to tell her lover just how deeply her love goes. The mood and tone in this poem is passionate. Browning describes the love she shares with her husband and how that love can never be destroyed by any power, human or spiritual nature. She is passionate about her love, describing it as a powerful force that can conquer everything in the universe. Next, the structure and the form of the poem. Sonnet 43 is classified as a sonnet because it contains 14 lines of poetry. It has a fixed rhyme scheme of ABBA, ABBA, CD, CD, CD. The poem is written in iambic pentameter. This means that each line contains 5 sets of 2 beats. The language that was used in the poem is old-fashioned English. How Do I Love Thee was first published in the collection Sonnets from the Portuguese in 1850. Thus, old-fashioned English was used. The language that was used is clear and straightforward. The poet made her point across clearly without making readers confused about her emotions or feelings. The theme of the poem is love and faith. The poem is primarily concerned with the love of the speaker with her significant other. She expresses her deep and innocent love in captivating ways. Also, to show the intensity the love she feels, she details how her love will eventually get stronger with time.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Eliya and I will be presenting the next parts of the poem. So let's talk about the summary. The poet expresses her unending love for her beloved. She expresses her love for her lover and tells him how much she adores him. She loves him with all of her being and she prays to God that she'll be able to love him even after she is gone. Moving on, I will be explaining about the imagery of the poem. The first imagery that can be spotted is simile. In the line, I love thee freely as men strive for right, the word as here is an indicator that it is a simile because it compares between two things, which is her free love and also men who strive for right. Next is personification. In the line, my soul can reach when feeling out of sight. This is known to be a personification because soul is not human, but somehow it is given a human trait. Next is hyperbole. The line, I shall but love thee better after death, is a hyperbole because we are not able to love someone when we are already no longer alive. Next is visual imagery. In the line, most quiet need by sun and candlelight. The word sun and candlelight is an indicator that something is brightly lit, so it is easier for the readers to visualize what the poet is trying to describe. Next is anaphora. In the lines, I love thee freely as men strive for right, I love thee purely as they turn from praise, I love thee with the passion put to use. The first three words of these lines are anaphora because there is a repetition of I love thee at the first part. Next is metaphor. In the line, I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight, for the ends of being an ideal grace. So this is a metaphor because the poet compares her soul to a physical, three-dimensional object in the world. Now, we'll be discussing about the sounds. There are three different types of sounds in the poem. So the first one is alliteration. There is a p sound in the 8th line. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. So the word purely and praise here has the p sound. Next is assonance. The sounds E and I in the 7th line. I love thee freely as men strive for right. T and freely has the E sound, while strive and right has the I sound. Next is the consonants. There is a T sound in the 6th line. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height. So depth and breadth here has a TH sound, T. Last but not least is the movement. So it is divided by its rhyme and also rhythm. The rhyme is an ABB, AA, BB, CD, CD, CD. It is a petroconsonant because the first part of the poem is an octave and the second part, which is the last 6 lines, is called a set. It is also known to be half rhymes because some of the rhymes are not absolute. For example, in line 1 and line 4, ways and grace, and for line 10 and line 12, faith and breath. As you can see, there is a similarity between these rhymes, but it is not exactly a perfect rhyme. Next is the rhythm of the poem. It is a sonnet because it has 14 lines. It is written in iambic pentameter and it can be seen in the line, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. The underlined words do, thee, me, and the is a proof that it is iambic pentameter. That is all for the poem, How Do I Love Thee? Thank you. The second poem that we will be analyzing today is the poem When I'm Dead My Dearest by Christina Rossetti. Now, I will be reading the poem aloud. The poem is titled When I'm Dead My Dearest by Christina Rossetti. When I'm dead, my dearest, sing no sad songs for me. Planto no roses at my head, nor shady cypress tree. Be the green grass above me with showers and dewdrops wet. And if thou wilt, remember, and if thou wilt, forget. I shall not see the shadows, I shall not feel the rain, I shall not hear the nightingale sing on as if in pain. And dreaming through the twilight, that doth not rise nor set, happily I may remember, and happily may forget. Before we move on with the presentation, I would like to give a short description of Christina Rossetti. So she was born in the United Kingdom in 1830. She is also the youngest child in a very talented family because her father herself was also a poet. She is known to be a very famous poet of poems such as Remember in 1862, The Prince's Progress in 1866, A Pageant in 1881, and many more. She died in December 29, 1894 at Torrington Square. Firstly, let's talk about the subject matter of the poem. The poem revolves around death, so the meaning of the poem is about mourning, the necessity of mourning, and why we mourn. The purpose of the poem is that the poet is trying to urge her loved one to not spend too much time grieving on her when she dies, because she is not there to witness her own death. Next is the tone and the mood of the poem. So the tone of the poem is melancholy, because the poet wishes for her loved one to not perform any acts of mourning, as she believes that the act performed should be for the living rather than for the dead. And the mood of the poem is acceptance, because when the poet dies, she wants her loved one to live without her and move on, even though it is obviously easier said than done. Now we will be moving on to the language. The language used in the poem is an old-fashioned English. The poem is written in 1848, so as you can see that the language used was obviously appropriate for the setting back in the day. And the example of the line that can be taken is, "And if thou wilt remember." The word "to" here is an indicator that it was an old-fashioned English, because as you can see in modern poems right now, we don't really use the word "to." Next, the language of the poem is also very straightforward. The poet made her message clear about how it was about mourning, death, and also how she wants her loved one to move on. So the effect of this straightforwardness of the language made it easier for the readers to comprehend the poem's purpose. Next, I will be discussing about the structure of the poem. So the poem has 2 stanzas, and in each stanza there are 8 lines. Altogether, there are 16 lines in total. But there is a special feature in the second stanza, because the second stanza is written in iambic tetrameter. There are 4 beats that are placed together. For example, in the first line of the first stanza, "I shall not see the shadows." So the underlined words here, shall, see, and shadows, indicates that this is an iambic tetrameter. Because of it, there is a song-like rhythm. Love, death, and mourning is the main theme of the poem. So the poet tells a loved one not to worry about remembering her when she is gone, because she is not there to witness it. The poem suggests that mysteriousness of death justifies not wasting the time we have while we are still alive. So basically, the poem is a reminder to all to not spend too much time on those who are no longer around to appreciate it.
On this session, I am going to talk about the summary of the poem. In the first stanza of "When I am dead, my dearest," the speaker asks her loved one not to worry about remembering her after she passed away, because she won't be able to distinguish the difference. Without a trace of sentimentality, the speaker instructs to not sing any sad songs for her or put flowers or plant a tree on her grave when her time comes. Instead, all the speaker needs above her grave is green grass, showered with rain and dew. In the second stanza, the speaker explains the reason why she does not care about her beloved forgetting her. The reason why is because she will not be there to see the shadow or feel the rain or hear the song of the nightingale. After death, she will dream and sleep in the dust forever, which means like she won't even be around to notice. She seemed to be unsure whether in the afterlife she will remember or not, as she imagines death as a kind of eternal sleep in which she will be unaware of what's happening on the earth. The speaker ends the poem by saying that he can happily remember or happily forget things that happened while she was alive. The word happily, meaning by chance or lucky, implies that the speaker is uncertain of what will happen to her own memories after death, which means that the poem ultimately suggests that mysteriousness of death justifies not wasting what little time one has on earth. It's important not to expend too much energy or unnecessary attachments to those who are not around anymore. Next, Okay, on this session, I am going to show you the imagery that could be found in this poem. Firstly, the visual imagery. Nor shady cypress tree be the green grass above me. The shady cypress and the green grass are the visual imagery that can be found. Secondly, tactile imagery. I shall not feel the rain. Feel the rain, which implies the feeling of the rain, and with showers and dewdrops wet. The wet, by reading this, you can imagine the wetness of the dewdrops, which is why it is tactile. Thirdly, auditory imagery. I shall not hear the nightingale sing no sad songs for me. Hear the nightingale, the auditory of hearing, and sing no sad songs for me, songs, auditory. And lastly, organic imagery. Sing on as if in pain. The pain is the organic imagery. The metaphor that can be found in this poem is being the grass. Line 5, stanza 1. The grass is a plant that can be stepped on, drowned in the rain, or put through drought and continue to grow. A metaphor for enduring and continuing to move forward with life. Sound pattern. So on this session, I am going to show you the sound pattern that can be found. Firstly, alliterations. When I'm dead, my dearest. The D sound of dead and dearest in the first line of the first stanza. Secondly, sing no sad songs for me. The S sound at the beginning of adjacent sing, sad, and songs in the second line of the first stanza. Next is the repetitions. And if thou wilt remember, and if thou wilt forget, lines 7 to 8. Happily I may remember, and happily may forget, lines 15 and 16. And, the repetitions of and if thou wilt and happily I may. The repetitions are to emphasize the idea that whether their companion wishes to remember or forget the speaker, it is all the same. Movement. Song is the movement of the poem. Song is divided into 2 verses, which with 8 lines, each of which could be further broken down into 2 quatrains, rhyming off an ABCB pattern. That is a clear rhythm, and bit to this work, it is structured so as to flow in the most natural way for the reader. Well, that brings us to the end of our presentations. We sincerely appreciate that we have had this opportunity to present it to you. We would like to thank you for your time and attention today. Thank you.